What's up, world? It's the Fun Waste of Time podcast, where a couple of friends get together to discuss all things entertainment, movies, TV, video games, home theater, and anything else considered a fun way to waste your day. I'm your host, Taurus, and co-hosting with me this episode, we've got Blair of Brolic Media and some special guests joining in the fun. I'm not an industry insider. I'm just a fan of my hobbies who enjoys talking shop about my favorite pastimes. So if you enjoy entertainment media, pop culture, and home theater, we hope you enjoy listening into the conversation as much as we're going to have a great time having the discussion. Let's get it started. Welcome to episode 40 of the Fun Waste of Time. Today is going to be a dedicated home theater experience episode. I've got a fantastic co-host joining me and some awesome guests that those of us who are home theater enthusiasts are really going to enjoy hearing from as they share their experiences about their home theater journey. Well, let's check in with our co-host and meet our guest. What's happening, Matt?
Hey, how's it going, Taurus?
Well, let me start off by saying, welcome back to the show. And instead of appearing as a guest, we've got you as a full-on host this time around.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Now, since you were last on the show, there's not only been a lot that you've done within your home theater within that time that we're going to discuss a little later in the show, but you've hit some milestones on the professional front. Would you mind sharing with all of us what that is?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So some of the upgrades I've made, video chain, the JVC RS3000, the Kaleidoscape system, the Stewart ST130 G4 screen, Lumagen 5348, which is the audiophile version of the Lumagen Radiance Pro processor line. On the professional side, I've actually become an AV integrator. So I've been doing installations, theater designs, 3D modeling, become a dealer for several manufacturers like Stewart and Lumagen, Kaleidoscape, etc. And things like that. It's been going really well. I've been doing a lot of local installations and setups, calibrations, etc. And I enjoy it, so I'm happy. The customers are happy, so it's a great new direction to go into.
Now, normally in the intro, I say we're not industry insiders, just fans of our hobbies. But now that you're an industry insider, Matt, I couldn't in good consciousness say that. I had to just refer to myself.
It's funny. I actually noticed that. I noticed that you said "I'm" because I'm a super fan of the show as well. So when I heard "I'm," like, oh yeah, that's right, because
I couldn't do you like that, Matt. I couldn't do you like that.
No, definitely.
Well, we wish you the best of luck, and I know that this industry just received an upgrade because a true fan and patron of the hobby decided to take it more seriously. We all are going to benefit greatly because of it. That is fantastic.
No, definitely appreciate it, man. I'm definitely looking forward to what the future holds.
Well, let's take some time and meet our guest. Now, our first guest is someone that I've been following for a little while now. He's posted some phenomenal videos and photos of his theater and game room on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And what I love about his space is just about every time I watch one of his videos, he's regularly adding something new to improve the overall experience. Not only does he have a fantastic theater, but he's also got a phenomenal game room as well. I always say to myself when watching his videos, now that looks like an awesome space to hang out and have a good time. Let's give a warm welcome to Hussain Pasha of Game Room Theater.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys.
What's happening, Hussein?
All good, man. Thanks. That was a very, very warm welcome, I must say. Thank you so much. Really
Not a problem.
appreciate
Well, listen, you've put in a lot of hard work on your channel and what you've done in your game room as well as your theater, so you absolutely deserve it, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. Well, now one thing that we're big on here at the Fun Waste of Time is connecting with like-minded fans and enthusiasts within our hobbyist communities. You don't have to be an industry insider or content creator to join us on the show. For us, it's all about meeting regular fans like us who have a passion for these pastimes and want to talk shop about some of their experiences and some of the latest things happening within the hobby. I put out a call a few months ago to a few home theater Facebook groups, as well as the Fun Waste of Time Instagram page, for anyone in the community who was interested in joining the show to talk home theater with us. Our next guest answered that call. He has a really nice theater with some great components and is a big fan of the home theater hobby. Now, he just recently sold his home and is in the process of dismantling his theater. So we're going to talk about his theater prior to the sale and ideas he has for his new theater moving forward. Let's give a round of applause to Arjun Sud.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here in such good company with an industry insider and fellow fans.
It is awesome to have you here, Arjun. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Cheers. My pleasure. I'm excited to share a little bit about my experience in the hobby, and hopefully that can help enhance the community.
Fantastic. Well, all right, guys. Now that we know our cast, let's not delay. Let's get right into Home Theater Experience.
TV, movies, video games, the ultimate home theater experience. HTX.
Home Theater Experience is for those listeners who have or who aspire to have a home theater. Whether it's a dedicated home theater that's light controlled with a projector, projection screen, and an immersive sound system, or those who have a nice media room with a large TV and a great surround sound system to complement the viewing experience. In this segment, I typically like to highlight my experiences watching movies and TV shows, as well as playing video games in the Fun Waste of Time theater and game room. I also give my opinion on whether or not I feel that content is worthy enough to recommend that you experience it in your own theater or media room. However, we're doing things a little bit differently this episode. We've got our guests, all of whom have really nice theaters, and we're going to have a conversation about their theaters and their overall impressions about the hobby. Our co-host, Matt, also made some recent additions to improve his home theater. So we'll take a little time to get into that as well. As I stated earlier, our guest Hussein is not only a home theater enthusiast, but he's also got a fantastic game room. And we'll be taking a little time to have a discussion about that also. But before we dig into the home theater discussion, before we get things started, there's a question new guests on the show have to answer first. And I'm going to ask this of each of you, Hussein and Arjun, starting with you, Arjun.
Sure.
So, as you all know, the name of the show is The Fun Waste of Time, which is all about celebrating our hobbies. So in the spirit of that, I want to know, Arjun, what are the fun ways you like to waste your day? Meaning, what are your hobbies, my friend?
Thank you. Well, I had quite a few of them. I recently sold a 450-gallon fish tank. And, my wife is thrilled. And I said, nope, don't be so happy because it's all going into my first love, home theater. And I've really found over the years that, despite having many hobbies, they've all kind of always come back to home theater. And that's where my true passion lies, because it is not just an experience that allows you to escape a pandemic or a happy moment or a sad moment in life. It is also an experience that crosses boundaries culturally. Some of my happiest memories are when I lived in Vietnam, going to a theater with locals and foreigners alike, and all laughing and enjoying the same thing in the spirit of humanity. So, I have always greatly appreciated that. And, it has inspired me to take this up as my primary hobby. The second thing I really like is automation, because, hey, if the Jetsons could do it, why can't we? So, I decided that Mark and Elon aren't the only ones that are going to have all the fun. And in my own small little way, I'm running a home assistant server, and I spend a lot of time kind of trying to merge the two. So that's me. Those are my two big loves. And my wife. Yep. If you're watching, sweetie.
Can't leave her out, huh?
That's important.
I tell you. You were going to hear about it tonight when the video came out, if you didn't say anything about it, Arjun. So let's go to Hussein. Hussein, what are the fun ways you like to waste your day? Meaning, what are your hobbies?
Just all kinds of gadgets. I grew up around gadgets. I was that one kid. Dad would be like, you got in the honor roll. What do you want? I wanted a watch that had a data bank in it, and I wanted gyroscopes, and I wanted technology things ever since I can remember. The second thing that I've always been into and very passionate about are airplanes. And someone with my background and saying airplanes at a certain period of time brought back certain things. And so it's a danger zone to kind of go in there with a guy named Hussein in the airplanes. I've got a lot of stories around what has happened to me in the past with that. But anyway, so first year university, I signed up and I was all gun ho aeronautical engineering. Then the pressures from the family, like, hey, you're gonna work for NASA. Where are you gonna be? You wear glasses. You're not gonna be a pilot. Change your career. So I went into computer science, and that's kind of what my background is now. But my passion still remains airplanes. I can name airplanes by the sound of their engine when they're starting up or taking off. Military planes, commercial planes, whatever. I'm one of those guys that'll go hang out at the airport for an hour and a half, watching airplanes land and take off. And I'm one of those guys that enjoys the more stops there are on the leg to go anywhere. The more layovers there are, absolutely fine. There's more takeoffs and landings.
That's right.
So I'm all for it. And growing up, I actually lived in the States for several years, about 3 years. Went to boarding school in Pennsylvania, and my parents and everyone else was in the Middle East. So we would actually have to fly back in the 90s every 2.5 to 3 months, 10,000 miles. I was 14, 15 years old. Yeah. Flying back, sometimes for 4 days at a time, 5 days at a time. Loved every second of it. Never got old. It'd be from Pennsylvania, from Philadelphia to JFK to Amsterdam to Amman, Jordan to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, which would take about 40 hours. Sometimes I was there for 3 days. It took more time to go there and come back, and I loved every minute of it.
It's something about airports, man. I'm going to be honest with you. I enjoy going to the airport as well, getting ready to fly somewhere. I mean, it's an awesome experience preparing to do that. That is fantastic, though, I'm saying.
Yeah, my wife and I do that too, so I'm definitely with you. We go and just sit and watch the planes take off.
Oh, nice.
All the time. It's nice.
Nice.
Now, let me ask you this, Hussein. You say you like airplanes quite a bit. Do you go to air shows at all? Is that something that you're into?
Absolutely. Any air show that comes up that I can get access to, I will go to. I've been to several in the Middle East, and I've been to several in North America. One of the gems, I would say, if you're into military airplanes, is to go to the Dayton Air Force Museum in Ohio. So it is a fantastic experience. They've got a whole bunch of experimental aircraft there, and they've also got a lot of the retired presidential aircraft as well. I mean, you hear about the Smithsonian, like, one or two aircraft there, but the rest of them are at this location. It's a little bit off the beaten path for a lot of folks, so they're not aware of it. But fantastic place to visit. So if you're ever in Dayton, Ohio, go to Wright-Patterson
Air Force Base.
Exactly.
Yeah, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hussein, have you ever checked out VR with the new flight simulator that came out?
I have at a friend's house, actually. I was running that in the theater room at some point. I just need a more robust gaming PC to be able to do that. I don't know if you've seen pictures of my theater room setup. I've got screens, 46-inch screens on the side as well. So I integrated all of that. So what I ended up doing was you're looking at the cockpit view as the pilot, but on the sides you had the side windows as if you were a passenger on an airplane. So it was a fantastic experience, just kind of emulating some of that, because it's been a long lockdown. Like I'm in Canada, and you guys, if you're in the States, you have it a little bit easier than we do. we have been in a perpetual lockdown since March of last year. And it actually got worse in November. So November 22nd, they locked us in, and we have not been able to have any outside guests, believe it or not, since that time. So my parents, no one's been over. Uh, um, is what I gotta say on camera. No one has been. Otherwise, it's $50 fine per person. So
Oh
it's been
wow.
brutal. So we've got another month to go before actually some of the shenanigans and the updates, Taurus, that you noted. Every week there seems to be something new. It's me being jittery, not being able to sit still. I'm like, I gotta do something. I'm all about the journey, and more so than the destination. So I'm like, I'm gonna keep going.
That's awesome, Hussein.
All right.
Fantastic. Well, all right, guys. So now we know a little bit more about our guests. So let's talk home theater at this point. Now, what I want to know, guys, Hussein and Arjun, is I want to talk a little bit about the design and the components that you guys actually have in your theater and what you're working with so that folks that are listening can follow along with it. So in regards to the design and dimensions, I want to know room dimensions, the width, length, and ceiling height, if you have any windows in your theater, your screen, type, size, manufacturer, your projector, speaker layout, configuration, brand, placement, seats, type of seats you have, how many, do you have multiple rows, acoustical choices, any panels, diffusers you may have, and devices, Blu-ray player, streaming devices, any kind of media player that you have that you're using, that you prefer to use, and gaming systems. So let's start with Hussein. Hussein, would you mind sharing with us a little bit about your theater?
Sure. In terms of size, dimension-wise, I've got a 13 by 20 by 7.5 foot high, no windows, and the way the room kind of came about. So we bought this house about 8 years ago now, and the existing space was open on one side, and it was actually a bar. So my family and I we don't drink, so it was going to be an absolute waste for us to have a bar with a proper setup. So when I walked into that room, I envisioned my theater would go in there for sure. Because in my existing home at the time, I had set up a theater space as well. So the evolution of that was to immediately convert and use existing walls that were already there. So if you're not given a blank template, as most of us have to do, we have to make compromises here and there. So as you can see in the picture that's up there, I've got those side panels. So if you can go back to that previous picture, so some of the compromises I've had to make in this room was the spot that's in between the screen on the left and the main viewing screen. There is a major pillar that's behind the wall there. So it is not a perfect square. The wall actually opens up and covers that pole. So therefore, I am limited by the screen size. I mean, I would have gotten, there's no replacement for size in my opinion. I would have gone bigger for sure, but I am limited by that load bearing beam that's there, and it would have been huge bucks to get a structural engineer and move all of that. So the walls being completed, I did add insulation where you've got those TV panels, sound deadening material to at least shield some of the audio from escaping the room, if you will, and going upstairs. The ceiling has rock wool as well, and further sound insulations. And then the additional wall that I recently did, I want to say recently, as in about a year ago, to close off the room. I was one of those guys that was kind of saying it's going to be too closed off. It's already way too blacked out. I don't want to feel claustrophobic. The audio fine is going to take a hit, but I'm going to leave it open. And closing it off was probably the best thing that I've actually done. It made a huge impact on the audio quality. Running recalibration again, and I was like, I was absolutely missing out. So I felt that the room would feel too small, and it absolutely did not. Being all dark and black like that, it actually had the opposite effect. It made it feel bigger than I anticipated. So because you can't see the ends of it. right? So there's black felt on the walls. I wanted it to be like a black hole. I just wanted the walls to be able to suck light. So the cloth also had a secondary effect, which helped with the acoustics as well, because the room was fairly bright. I've got tiles in the back that I still haven't covered, and I didn't want to cover. It's not visible in any of the pictures, but there's probably about about a fourth of the room that is tiles in the back and not carpeted. So the cloth on the walls, the black felt, actually aided in that aspect as well. And I've got some sound, besides the sound deadening, I've got some acoustic panels that are in the walls behind the cloth, and you can't really even tell that it's there. In terms of bass traps and things like that, that I still have to work on quite a bit. So once we get into it a little bit more, I think I may end up describing where my trajectory is, where I'm headed, what I'm looking to swap out and change out. Not quite end game type of things just yet, but the incremental step next to really upgrade. So in terms of the projector, I recently had a NX5 from JVC for about 4 months. I recently got rid of that. I say it in a negative tone, but it was such a fantastic projector. Difficult. Now that I've got a taste of JVC, sadly, nothing else really lends my ear to say, anyone starts talking about anything different, I'm a one-trick pony now. I'm going to stay with JVC type of thing. So I recently got rid of that. So the reason for that is I'm looking to incrementally upgrade to the NX7 and have that. My plan is to have that for about 4 to 6 months, perhaps even slightly less, and then end up by the end of the year with the 9. And the reason for that is I want to be able to see, with all things being equal, in my personal controlled environment, what the incremental difference looks like from an NX5 to an NX7, so that I can at least on my YouTube channel make some informed comments, and again limited to myself being not being a professional, and all things being equal, what that looks like in doing that upgrade from an NX5 to an NX7, and then what that upgrade from an NX7 to an NX9 looks like, all things being equal. So I'm really curious to see, spending that several $1,000s more each time in an incremental, what that really buys you. And again, it is diminishing returns when you're talking in this kind of game anyway. The more you spend, and there's a cost on that diminishing return. What is that cost, and does that make sense to you? So that's kind of where it's headed.
So Hussein, I have a quick question for you. I
Sure.
think that there's a significant value in doing that type of comparison, having the NX5 to the NX7 to the NX9. As far as capturing the deltas in performance between those three projectors, do you have like light meter, a colorimeter to measure the differences you're getting, like light output, color accuracy between those three models? Because that type of data would help a ton of people with making their decisions.
Right. I don't have that level of equipment, so it was really going to be based on capture. Like I've got an app on my phone. It uses the camera, and I can't remember the name of it exactly, but it functions in that capacity, and it's on a professional device, but in that kind of capacity. So I've captured some basics from the NX5, and then I'm going to look at the NX7 as well. I'm also going to be using, quote unquote, emotion as well, in terms of what I see and what I feel being the difference.
Yeah,
just
important.
Besides just the numbers, I want to be able to see. I want to be able to see the difference and say, is this quantifiable for me as an incremental upgrade or not? Or where is the sweet spot? Is the 7 the sweet spot? Is the 5 the sweet spot? The 9 being exponentially more expensive than the 5. Where may the value exactly be in that? That's what I want to kind of get to.
Makes a lot of sense. What screen are you using?
So this one is a bit of a mouthful, and it's not a very common manufacturer. So It's the 110-inch Elon Vision Reference Studio Audio Weave 4K. It's their Nano Edge model, so it's got a very, very thin border around it with a very a bright LED. I think, in my opinion, a little too bright. So I keep it typically either off or very, very dim, because it tends to leak light not just into the room but back onto the screen itself. So it's a bit of a gimmick. I'll run it when I want ambience for a big sporting event and things like that. And speaking of lighting, I've also got it's almost sacrilege when you introduce exterior lighting, like any additional lighting into the theater room. I've got moving headlights that DJs use, and part of the reason for that is, I'd say 30% of the time I'm watching sports, like NBA, MLB, whatever going on in the theater room, and I miss going to the theater. I miss going to the stadium, and I miss going to an arena or a baseball game. So I wanted to create some of that craziness in my theater environment with stuff going on the side screens. Either box scores or the main players, just like a GIF of them moving or something. And if there's a big touchdown, I want touchdown flashing on those screens. And I wanted those moving headlights, which I programmed with a DMX controller, to randomly be, not randomly, in a controlled fashion, really be throwing lights different places. So if you've seen some of my Instagram videos, that's kind of what's going on. So it adds a fantastic level of ambiance, and it gets me to feel like I've got people around.
That's fantastic.
Hussein, when the pandemic kicks off, I'm stopping by for a few.
Absolutely.
Games, okay.
Absolutely.
I think you're going to be hosting more than Arjun. I think we all probably want to visit that way. Now, what about your speaker layout? What speaker configuration do you have
It's a 7.2.4. The LCR is all the same. It's RTIA 9 Polk towers. And then I've got 4 surrounds in the walls, Polk RC65s, 4 Dolby Atmos as well, RC60Is, and a couple of subs, SVS PB2000s.
Nice.
And a couple of amps as well, 2 XDA5s from Emotiva, a Gen 1 and a Gen 2 that are handling the power to all of the speakers. And I use a Denon 4300, which is getting very long in the tooth at this point. I got it because it was a cost-effective way to use as a preamp, and that's really what I'm using it as a preamp. And ultimately, these are some of the things that I'm looking to get swapped out, including the LCR, the receiver, the Emotivas. I'm emotionally attached to. Those are going to stay for a bit, but the speakers, front LCR is going to go. The receiver the preprocessor that I'm going to likely be getting is the AVM 70 from Anthem. Some of the reviews, the early reviews, have kind of scared me, and I'm sitting on the bench, mulling it over a bit until some of the kinks and bugs and firmwares kind of fixed and resolved. So that is kind of where things sit. I do have some bass shakers. Unfortunately, in my size room, my PB2000s from SVS are not sufficient enough. I've tried, placing them in different parts of the room, running a room equalization again and again, and it's just been it just does not dig deep enough to where I need it to be. So I've complemented in a sacrilege kind of way with using the bass shakers to somewhat bridge the gap a bit. But I definitely will be looking to upgrade those to something more serious. And visually, I ended up placing both subwoofers in the front again, which is not ideal. But it was just a small detrimental hit having them there. So visually, I like being able to light them and be able to see them in the front. But ideally, one in the back of the room worked slightly better. but I am looking to upgrade that, and the LCR will likely be upgraded as well. So mulling over between paradigms and or going straight to JTRs. Not their higher end, not their their top end models, but probably like the 210 RT or something like that. To have the LCR like that, and then their 2400s as a pair of their subs. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Probably within the next 3 to 6 months to do. The receiver and the front LCR and the subs to get swapped out, but the in walls and things like that a bit more invasive. So I'm not mulling those over just yet.
Do you find that having your subs behind your screen, it causes distortion with the screen when a bomb drops, or there's a big explosion on screen?
So absolutely not at all. Actually, there's zero. I feel testing it with the screen and without the screen, there was no measurable attenuation at all out of any sound that was coming out. There was no flutter in the screen itself. It is very porous. I was always concerned about that. Having subs with the cone moving air, if I'm going to have the screen shaking at all, but absolutely not. Did not happen at all, and I'm very pleased with that. So the JTRs though, they gave me a bit of pause. So I we'll see if that happens then. But but now it's absolutely fine.
So a couple more questions for you, Hussein. I'm looking at your seats, and your seats look to be the Valencia model.
Yes.
Are those Valencia seats?
Yes, they are Valencia Tuscanies. So the front row I've had exactly about a year now. Fantastic seats. They look like the day I got them. No sagging whatsoever, no creasing, any of that. And the MLP is the front row center. I started becoming conscious using these seats, like because 90% of the time it's me sitting in the theater room in that center seat. My son may come or not, and these seats are probably 60% occupied a couple of times a week, but the rest of the time, I am alone in that center seat, and these have held up very, very well. So the fronts are Valencia theater seating Tuscany line seats, and then the back is the Tuscany console. So as you can see there in the picture that you have up on the screen, the center seat can flap down, and it's a very luxurious feel. Although the audio and all of that is just really tuned for the front row. So the back seat is just very luxurious looking, but I sit in the front. I tend to be close to the screen and the action as well.
Now, what about your devices that you use? What do you use to stream, and what kind of Blu-ray player do you have?
So Blu-ray player, I recently removed from the theater room. I've got a UHD player in my PC, and I rip using DVD Fab to save onto my NAS server. I've got several viewing spots. As you can see, there's a big TV back there. I've got Ethernet running all over the house. So in my family room, I've got an 86-inch TV as well. And then in our bedroom, I've got a UST screen, a couple of them, believe it or not. I think I was mentioning to you earlier. I've got screens everywhere. So a UST screen with a UST projector. That I've got a floor rising one that comes out. So I've been kind of going down the path of potentially upgrading my screen as well. Elon Vision and East Porters is the parent company. They are very close by, and they tend to get me great pricing, and I end up swapping out and doing reviews that way. So
Fantastic.
Anyway, so because I've got these multiple locations, I just didn't want to get be swapping media. Not that I'm anti-media. I get it. I rip it. I'll sell it. If it's one of these collector box items, then I'll tend to keep it. But I really don't want to be getting up. So
Well, hey, if you're giving away your Blu-rays to subscribers and followers on your channels, I'm going to make sure that I raise my hand the next time I hear about a giveaway going on. That's fantastic, Hussein. That's a lot of great stuff that you have in there.
Yeah. So it's
And
about
we're also
40
gonna get into your-
terabytes, Taurus. It's about 40 terabytes worth. So I've got maybe about 25 terabytes now. And I tend to rip them as remuxes. So, like a decent quality UHD Blu-ray will be about 85, 90 gigs. And it doesn't take a whole lot of time to rip. I'll just start it. And if I want, I'll just run it as a batch overnight and have it complete in the morning. What would be on the bucket list, and perhaps as something to talk about, perhaps a little bit later in the show, as Matt mentioned, he's got a kaleidoscope. That would be on that. That's a bucket list item for me to get. I'm bridging the gap kind of manually by buying media and ripping it. But I want lossless audio and video. I want what is the best that's possibly available, and I don't want it to have to be compressed in any way. And that ends up being a double-edged sword. So yeah, we'll probably talk about that. I think a little bit later in a bit more detail, because I want to touch upon what Matt's got and what his personal experience is with the kaleidoscope, and if there are some shortcomings that I'm potentially not probably even thinking about.
Fantastic. We'll definitely get the opportunity to touch on some of that. Mm-hmm. Awesome theater, though, Hussein. Fantastic.
Thank you. Oh, and in terms of what I'm using as a front end, I am using mostly now an NVIDIA Shield Pro. So I've been very happy with it. It's been very snappy. Their firmware updates have been fantastic. I've had one. The older model I've had for about 4 or 5 years. The 2019 model I got as soon as it launched, and it's all connected via Ethernet anyway, and does not skip a beat with those 90 gig files that I throw at it to play, and does a fantastic job of it. So I've been very pleased with it.
Calling all video game, movie, TV, and home theater fans. You're listening to the Fun Waste of Time podcast, where we love to talk shop about your favorite hobbies and all the fun ways to waste your day.
All right. Well, now let's get into Arjun.
Yes.
Arjun, tell us a little bit about your theater.
Yeah, so this has always been something I've done through the years. Like, I remember back in college, people loved or hated me because it was really loud in my room. And, so this kind of was a project for the ages. And I said, when I buy a home, there are 3 things I want: a hot tub, a pool table, and a theater. And so my vision for my theater was to live what I'm watching. I don't just want to watch it. I want to actually feel it. I want to live it. I want to be there. And so, against popular advice, I basically took the entire size of my room, and I fit the biggest screen that I could in there. So this photo is a little bit older. I sent this to Taurus just a few weeks ago, and then I ended up upgrading from this, which is a silver ticket screen, to a Stewart Ultramat 150, big, and it's a 158-inch screen. This was 150 16:9. The new one's 158 2.4, because I've realized that I tend to watch a lot of movies and not so much of anything else. The speaker layout is 7 for the front, side, and back. It's 3 for the subs. 2 subs are the SVS BB16 Ultras, and then the back. There's just one smaller one that I used to keep right behind my seat for really that punch. And then finally, I've got 4 Atmos speakers in the ceiling as well. And so, this has really been a project over time where I have developed it. Like, first, my wife said, okay, if you want a theater, it cannot be black. And I said, okay, if you're going to agree to this, it won't be black. And then, 3 months later, it was black. So I went out and I bought the Roscoe paint because they use it on Broadway to really flatten, for reflections and absorption. And so, everything was painted black. And then, these were my seats, which I have since sold because, I found like staying in a basement, these were leather and they worked great and very, very comfortable. But they tend to feel very cold, and I enjoy a warmer experience. So I'm going to try and look for something that's maybe microfiber or a little bit different and yet black. And I don't know if I'll be successful. I've got some paneling along the walls as well, which certainly help with the sound absorption. Because in the beginning, without the paneling, without the carpet on the floor, it was very tinny, the sound in the room, and the reflectivity was just driving me bonkers. But ever since, we've kind of put these in here. So it's been great. And then finally, I remember going to watch Aladdin when Disney launched Aladdin, and I thought that when the Cave of Wonders spoke, it was really, really interesting because I felt it in my seat, and I was like, I need to figure out how they did that. So I literally found the manager and I said at AMC, what are you guys doing? And they said, well, we've got these thing called butt kickers. So I remember going home and like spending hours Googling what they have, which specific model, found the number, called butt kicker. They were so good, the Gitamer company. And they're like, yeah, we just outfitted our theaters with this. And they're like, okay, so I'm going to get the bigger model. So I've got two of those things that you see on the screen. Those are the big boys. They're meant for a couch. I put it, essentially on the stage. And then I've also got the individual ones built into the seats that I'm going to be taking with me. So, it's really designed. I mean, it's very tough to follow Hussein's theater, which is so beautiful and so technically phenomenal. But mine is built really around just feeling the movie, because for the 2 hours of my life that I'm dedicating to that movie, I really want to live it. So Bohemian Rhapsody was one of my favorites, and I recently actually just got to watching Straight Outta Compton because I really love music and I really love movies, and they're both great intersections of each. And so I could really feel every note. I could close my eyes and hear Freddie's voice, or Eazy-E's first audition for the song, and it's just these subs just really bring everything to life, I think.
The one thing that I want to say, Arjun, is that's the one thing that I love about home theater. There are all different types of home theaters out there. Some tend to focus on aesthetics. Some tend to focus more so on performance. Some try to get a balance of both of them. So it really doesn't necessarily matter how someone else sees your theater. It's all about how you feel about it and how it's working for the purposes of you using it. And it looks to me like your theater is all about performance, and it looks very comfortable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Very comfortable, and I couldn't ask for more with respect to performance. My equipment, I'm running essentially the Denon 4300 as well. But for my left, center, right, I've got crowns that are powering that specifically. Actually, if you go back, it's in the cupboard shot, perhaps just, right there. So I've got those two crowns over there. Right at the bottom, I've got a dedicated amp for the butt kickers. And then, for media consumption, I've got the Apple TV 4K. I've got, the Panasonic UB450, if I'm recalling the model correctly. And I've got the Xbox One as well. So, that combined with the Stewart screen and an NX7 that I'm now looking to sell and then upgrade to the NX9 in my new home has just been a really, really nice experience. And the sharpness, the blacks, the brightness, the contrast, for the time that I'm watching something, it's just on point.
I want to ask you about that Ultramat 150 that you have.
Sure.
Now, for those that are listening that aren't familiar with the Stewart Ultramat 150, basically it's a 1.5 gain screen. So it's kicking off quite a bit of brightness off the screen itself. I want to know, Arjun, how has that been treating you? Are you seeing any sheen off that screen? Because I'm thinking you have the G4 version of the Ultramat 150, which is the most recent material that screen has come out, that Stewart, has come out for their screens. How do you find the experience with that Ultramat 150?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Actually, I was really worried about that because, everyone said, well, 150 is like maybe a little too much. And so, we got the samples in, and I tried to look for those, speckles and artifacts in the screen. And fortunately, I just didn't see them. And I've had no trouble at all. But I think a big portion of that is, coming from a silver ticket, which, while they
That's
say
a big jump. That's
right.
A real big jump.
Right, exactly. And, at a 158 on an NX7, I'm really stretching myself for brightness. And so I have got nothing but huge gains in terms of that screen, and I couldn't recommend it any more highly than I already do. It's wonderful.
That is fantastic, Arjun.
Thank you.
Hey, Arjun. On the subject of the screen itself, I just want to say I'm with you in the whole concept of going bigger than the mathematics say you should. So I'm right there with you, man.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I love it because you know what? I mean, it is that grandiosity that really separates a theater from a living room. And when you see Gandalf in all his glory with the staff, it is larger than life, and it really helps you feel like you're a part of the battle of the four armies, or Hogwarts Castle. And I'm 100% on board, my friend.
Fantastic. And we will get the opportunity to look at what Matt is rocking in his theater coming up here soon. So we're all about big theaters here, big screens. Fantastic. So I want to go back to Hussein. Hussein, let me ask you, what control system do you use for your theater? Are you using Control 4, Savant, a Logitech Harmony, any voice controls or anything of that nature that you're using?
Yeah, with voice control, absolutely. So I'm with Arjun. I'd like to automate every possible thing if it can be done. I want it to be done. So having said that, I use the Logitech Harmony system. And I do have some custom webhooks that feed through IFTT to basically encapsulate some smart devices that Harmony doesn't integrate into their suite just yet. So that has been fantastic to be able to do, to be able to control other devices that aren't really part of their ecosystem. So Harmony has been fantastic, and as you guys are well aware, they are no longer in the business of making remotes anymore. So this gives me pause in terms of how long this product is now considered end of life and how long it'll be supported. And I also feel a bit more anxiety now, thinking what would be next. Like say a couple of years down the road, may potentially end up being the Control 4 route if there's nothing else to really take Harmony's place. I've been a huge Harmony fan since probably about 2005 or 6. I've had their smart remotes since then, and it's been fantastic. And I was heartbroken, to be honest, to see that they're killing off their business.
Same here.
Arjun, what are you using as your control system?
Harmony. It really has been the godfather for home theater specifically, not just because of the breadth of devices it can control, but also the macros that you can build into it relatively simply without having to call an installer has been just phenomenal, and then they extended that into Alexa. So it's been really, really good. One thing actually I forgot to highlight that I've done with my theater, even though Hussein correctly called it sacrilegious, is I have actually built, there are the hue lights behind my screen, as well as on the side. And I've got Hue Play. So when my son, who is, all of 3 now, wants to watch Trolls, it is a party in there. Like it just, the colors jump off the screen. And it's amazing how you really you walk into the jungle and the room turns green. They've done a phenomenal job. And the harmony has just kind of brought all of that together and allowed you to choose which way you want to experience a movie. So harmony it is for the win, at least right now. Yeah.
Now, how are you using your theater? Now, when I refer to that, I'm referring to, are you just watching movies in it? Do you watch TV shows? Do you play video games, sports? Arjun, how are you actually using your theater?
So I'd say it's about 90% of movies, both Hollywood and Bollywood. I'd say 5% is maybe TV. Maybe they're having the Oscars, the Super Bowl, and it's like a great time to have friends over, fill those seats up and host. And about 5% of the time is sports. The only sport I really enjoy is cricket and or the soccer World Cup. So I'll never forget my son's first birthday. My in-laws came over from Philadelphia and we were, we had them over and he just turning 1. And, India, which is where I'm originally from, was playing Pakistan that day. And, if you're a true Indian, all Indians watching this, watch the India-Pakistan match. So there I was. The game starts at 3. My son's birthday is at 5 p.m. So all my colleagues at the office, I'm like, guys, 2:30 in the morning, you're showing up at my house. We're going to get together and we're going to turn it up and we're going to bring the house down. And 2:30 in the morning, they came over with their Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's coffee. And I'm like, thank you. Poured it down the drain, filled up a couple of rum and Cokes. And I'm like, here you go, boys. We're going to take this home. So, sports, that's where I watch my sports.
And I'm Pakistani background, so I know exactly what Arjun is talking about. It's like that.
That is fantastic.
I love it, man.
So Hussein, what are you watching? What are you using your theater for? How do you use it?
I'd say about 60% of the time I am actually watching sports, and 40% of the time is movies, and probably about 20% of the time is with my families. I literally, this may be very odd to hear, but I practically have to bribe my family to come downstairs. So I've got a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old, and my wife, she enjoys the couch in the family room being sprawled, and that's it. Does not care for the big sound or big theater type of experience whatsoever. So I force either a Friday or Saturday night, I force a major family movie night. And that my 16-year-old's got a PS5 in his room, so which is perhaps a mistake now that I'm saying it out loud. It's hard to pry him off of that on a Friday, Saturday night to be able to come and join us. You would think a big quote unquote mindless action movie like Mortal Kombat, you would think a teenage boy would be like, absolutely, Dad, I need the best possible experience to watch this. Let's go. Gun ho. Let's make it happen. Nope. I had to literally bribe everybody with popcorn, with this and with that. Guys, we're doing a movie night. You got to come downstairs. And boom. That's how I make stuff happen. So this is why that ratio is probably kind of odd in a dedicated theater space, a 60-40 split, 60% of the time sports and 40% of the time movies and 20% of the time with family.
That's awesome. Look, he has to put his fatherly foot down to get everybody to come down and hang out in the space.
Family meeting in the theater.
Yeah.
Get down here now.
and lock the door.
Lock the door.
That is fantastic. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt now to ask this next question of you guys.
Yeah, so, as far as the people who you have in your theater, and specifically, we're going to start with Hussein. As far as I've noticed that you do thematic preparations for major events like the Mortal Kombat just came on. I saw on your YouTube channel that you have themes with images on the side screens as well as the main screen. Does your family take part in that preparation, and what are the steps you take to actually do that preparation? Is it a family affair, or is it just you? How do you go about that? Like, just a quick step by step.
It's my 12-year-old, as I was mentioning at the beginning, he has a very hyperactive imagination. So he's always about, Dad, let's do something with, let's be more creative. Let's put this up on the screen. This would look cool. That might be nice. And that's how it kind of starts. And the longest part of that process. So if you've seen any of the videos, I've got many screens in the theater room and in the game room. So what I end up doing is I end up taking about 10 or 15 minutes to think about with my son what images should be playing on the various screens as I walk past it while the audio of the trailer is playing. And my son will then say this image or that image. He'll send it to me. That takes about 10 or 15 minutes to do. And then from my phone, I push them to the various screens. They've all got their own IP addresses, and I've got servers running on them. It's very easy to access which file should be displayed next, and also that's kind of essentially how it starts. The little bit of time that I do spend is in with the smoke machine and the fog machine. You can kind of see in the back it's kind of running now. So that is a consequence of spending our first New Year's alone. We were in lockdown; nobody allowed in from the inside or out, to come in from the outside at all. So I'm like, I want to be able to give my family a level of craziness of New Year's with stuff happening, like 4D type of effects happening. And that's why I ended up playing around. I guess I was a DJ in a former life, perhaps. So I started messing around with a DMX controller and got these lights, and I'm like, I'm gonna try and see what I can do and use them in other ways. And that's kind of what we've been doing is like a major sporting event. When we're watching the any major NFL game, like the players are running in, they've got fog machine coming in on the players. Like, boom, I'll hit the fog machine and hit the lights as well. It literally felt like during the Super Bowl that the Bucks were running off the screen into the room, because the fog that they were shooting on the side of the screens, I had shooting as well, along with the lights hitting them as well. It almost really looked like they were jumping out of the screen. So I was trying to create these 4D type of effects, basically.
Wow.
And we'll get the opportunity to see that coming up here shortly, because it looks fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Now to Arjun, same question. Just as far as involvement of the family and friends, just taking part in your theater experience. How do you integrate that, especially in the middle of a pandemic? Does your family like to come use the theater with you? Is it mostly just you?
Yeah, so my wife finds it quite cold in the basement, and so typically she lets me just have my space here, which is all right. I've actually enjoyed. It's kind of like my parent-free. Like I remember being a bachelor when I enter that room, and I'm like, this is good old times. But a lot of my friends, the guys, they come over. Fortunately, like we've got our vaccines, and we have these little bubbles, and so we're taking all the appropriate measures during the pandemic, and pre-pandemic it was always fine. And so they'd come over, but what I find truly magical, and what I'm most proud about, is that 3 of my friends that have actually walked into my theater, and it's the first real home theater that they've been in, have walked out and have, because of that experience, decided to build their own. And
paying it forward.
Yes. So I've gotten into a lot of trouble for that with their significant others.
I can imagine.
But that being said, it is a true bonding moment, because I watch a lot of Bollywood movies too, and I found that actually from a sound engineering perspective, Hollywood tends to be very LCR focused. Bollywood truly knows how to use all your channels and surround you, in my experience. And, a lot of my friends that are from America hadn't really experienced a Bollywood movie. So I said, come, we'll turn on subtitles and I can explain along the way. And so, we've kind of been introducing each other to good films, foreign films, and it's just been a phenomenal use. So once a week, we have like a movie night with friends.
It's interesting to hear you say that Bollywood has embraced basically the Dolby Atmos way of doing sound. Because if you subscribe, I actually subscribe to Dolby's channel on YouTube, and very, very regularly, they'll have a lot of Indian artists and Indian actors and Indian tech people talk about Dolby Atmos and some of the things that they're doing within their art. And, whether they're making movies or they're doing music, Dolby is trying to make sure that they have partnerships with a lot of these artists. I think that's fantastic. Bollywood is just as significant as Hollywood these days. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Bollywood tends to put out more movies annually than Hollywood. And because India is such a populous country, and, we've been, while India and Pakistan are two separate countries, we share the same common ancestry, and, the people relate very strongly to each other. So there's a large following across both countries. And even I remember going to Egypt when I was young, and they said, "Oh, we know this guy called Amitabh Bachchan, huge actor over there." So it's been phenomenal. And then somebody I went to school with actually just directed her first Bollywood movie, and she told me, from a sound perspective, there's a lot of time spent to really engross the audience. They spend a lot playing around with the channels, essentially. So.
Fantastic.
And just on that point for Bollywood, so same idea here. My wife is born and raised in North America, but her mindset is still very, very Eastern, and she's a huge fan of Bollywood movies as well. I was as well growing up. So what I tend to see is they sell you a dream. They'll give you a movie for 3 hours, but they will sell you a dream as well, because a lot of times the movies are designed for a very, very poor demographic overseas, and they have spent their entertainment money for that escapism for the 3 hours. So they'll get typically everything in a 3-hour movie. It'll be a emotional roller coaster. You'll have your action, you'll have your drama, and it just covers all the bases. And then you feel a sense of closure at the end, and you've sold also a dream, and you've uplifted people. So if you guys haven't dabbled in any Bollywood movies, maybe Arjun can suggest one or two, and you guys can perhaps take a look. Arjun, what would be high on my list is I thoroughly enjoyed Three Idiots from about 10 or 12 years ago, and wow. I exposed a few friends, colleagues at work. They all absolutely loved it. So I want to suggest that to Taurus and Matt as well, and see if these guys may give them some homework eventually to do one day.
That's on my list now, Hussein. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very simplistically Three Idiots. That's all it's called.
Hussein took the words right out of my mouth. Before this, I was trying to remember. Remember if we talk about Bollywood, these are the two movies I would recommend. Three Idiots was number one. It is such a wonderful time. It's about three idiots that go to college together, and then, basically where life takes them through their journey. And that's as much as I'd say without giving anything away, but it's great. And then the other one, to what Hussein was just saying, where they take you through the roller coaster, is a movie called Om Shanti Om with an actor called Shah Rukh Khan. Very, very popular. It's a great overall movie. It's nothing overly special, but it takes you through the journey. There are a lot of costume changes, lots of color, vibrance, but there are a lot of elements of Bollywood, old and new, that are embedded into that movie that really give you that song and dance that we are known for back home.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I got your number on speed dial, Arjun, so I may be contacting you.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and move it forward a little bit. Now, the next question that I have for you guys is, how do you feel your home theater experience compares to that of the commercial theater? Let's start with Arjun on this one. How do you feel your home theater compares to the commercial theater experience?
Yeah, thank you. I actually feel very, very strongly about this question. And the truth is that I really don't like going to commercial theaters anymore, because there's always like some kids there that Netflix and chill, or just waste time, and they're not really into the movie, and that's very distracting to us as the audience. And I feel like, firstly, the whole point of going to cinema is to experience the movie. And between the prohibitive prices, like a night out with your kids is easily $100, $150. Between the sodas and the popcorns and the drinks, the food. So there's that. Then you lose what you're there for in the first place, which is the movie. And then the third thing is I just feel like, with the pandemic, we have been blessed with something that I have prayed for years and years and years. And that is simply to have choice, to have the choice to watch Mortal Kombat at home or to watch Mortal Kombat in the theater. And if all the people that are proponents of going to the theater and watching a movie are correct, then we, the people, will actually choose to do that. But, I think the numbers are very interesting. Like when Invisible Man came out, last year, or Trolls World Tour. These were huge success stories in favor of at-home releases, and I think I can say confidently, all four of us here have been really blessed with the equipment we have to really experience it in the privacy of our own home. But the most important thing is, I love it because it does not lose sight of the most important reason we are there, and that is to experience the movie. You want to go to the restroom, you press pause. You wanna get a drink, it's free. You're hungry, go up, cook whatever you want in your microwave, bring it back down. But there's no distraction and there's very little cost. So I love it. I'm a huge supporter, and I hope that Warner Brothers is joined by other studios in years to come in making brave decisions, not to exclusively stream on that platform, but to give people the choice. Power to the people. That's my take.
Very well said. And what about you, Hussein? How do you feel about your home theater experience in comparison to the commercial theater?
Very, very similar to what Arjun just mentioned. Same kind of ideas. I tend to go to the theaters perhaps once a year or once every other year when it's that extremely big blockbuster that's being advertised that is a must-see, which I know is gonna get spoiled anyway. Which is why I then end up going to the theater to watch it, because before somebody else ruins it. So the one thing I don't miss are the sticky floors and the sticky seats and that sort of thing. And I say that with the least bit of arrogance. I don't mean to sound arrogant at all. It's just that aspect of it, don't miss at all. I do like the commercial experience of buying something, getting in line, passing this red velvet rope to go down this tunnel, to sit patiently watching for the 15 minutes or so that the commercials are going to run and all that. I do enjoy that experience. It sours very quickly after I actually do end up watching the movie, and then I say, okay, that's it for this year. And then the amnesia kicks in, and then I'll be like, okay, another year and a half goes by, and yeah, let's do this all over again, just to remind ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you for the next question.
Yeah, definitely. So the next question is day and date releases of movies. Studios are releasing them on streaming platforms. You can experience them in your home, or you can go to the commercial cinema, and we could probably throw in there as well desires for future day and date releases on platforms other than things like HBO Max, etc. Like, what is your inherent preference? If you can have a day and date release, but say you have your family do you prefer to go to a commercial cinema with the family for that family experience, like the outside of just like going and getting the popcorn, but like as a family, is your preference going to the commercial cinema or watching the day and date release at home, just from a family perspective?
Hussein, do you want to take this first?
Sure. So I would absolutely prefer to watch it at home on the day of release, when it's being released commercially as well. So, being pandemic and all, my wife and I are both extremely social, so we tend to have people over every weekend. A lot of times, multiple times a weekend, like on a Friday or Saturday night. Got a very large family, 8 or 9 nieces and nephews as well. So my basement and theater room is really the go-to place to watch movies, especially if it's a major release and somebody hasn't seen it. I insist that they watch it in the best possible experience they can post real commercial movie theater. So amongst my friends, I tend to have the better setup, and that's where I try to drive people to come and watch here. The key, unfortunately for me, with that is I want the best possible experience, and right now on the day of release, we don't get lossless audio, and that ends up being unfortunately a deal breaker for me sometimes. So, some lossless are very close in my opinion, but other times it is just too jarring of a difference in when you're externally amplified and you've got a proper setup and it's calibrated, and you it's an audible difference, right? So it slightly ruins that experience, and knowing that if you waited another 3 to 4 months, then you may have had a possible better experience.
Okay, so before we go to Arjun with that question, actually that first part to set a baseline. Now, post-pandemic, does your answer change?
Post-pandemic, no. I've got a taste of comfort now, where a big blockbuster being released on the same day that is being released in the theater. I'll take the lossy sound and just proceed with it. Like I'd prefer being at home, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay. And same question to Arjun. Current versus post-pandemic, as far as the family preference of day and date releases in cinema versus via having it in the house.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like an Anthem processor and how I should fund that. So I'm like, probably stay at home. But no. All jokes aside, I always support choice, and I support the overall experience. And for me, it's not just comfort, but it's the ability to share it with people that will truly enjoy it in a good environment that's distraction free at home, that I really value. Because, when Mortal Kombat was coming out, I have waited 25 years for this movie. I did not want to screw it up at all. So, I was really amped. And the moment that it dropped, I was watching it on here. Hussein brings up a really great point, though, about, lossless versus lossy audio. And I think back to last year when Invisible Man came out. And I really like horror. It's one of my favorite genres when it's done right. It was like 5.1. And, there are words I won't use on this show, but I was like, what is going on? Like, come on, $30 in this. But the sound blew me away. I literally left saying that is the best 5.1 streaming soundtrack I've ever heard. No complaints. And the day the disc came out on 4K, I picked it up. So, even into the future, if for no other reason, I will stay at home and watch it to support movies, production units that support the consumer's choice, because I believe that if the cinemas are to survive, let them do it on merit, not on contract. If they are that much better, people will choose them. But I don't believe that they will, because this experience is more wholesome, cheaper, and overall better. Hard to compete with.
Now, Matt, let me ask you the same question. Day and date, home, or day and date, commercial theater?
So
if you have the option if you got the option
Mhm.
to watch it at home or go to the theater, and it's a big blockbuster movie that is in all of its grandioseness, if that's a word.
It is now.
It is. It is. Fun waste of time vocabulary, guys.
That's right.
You going to the theater to see it? Commercial theater, or are you watching it at home?
So my answer right now, I'm saying at home, and the answer would have been different before the second Avenger, before Avengers Endgame came out, because in the last 10 years, I've been to the commercial cinema 3 times to watch Black Panther, Avengers, whatever the one before Endgame, and then Avengers Infinity War, and then Endgame. When I went to see Endgame, I happened to be sitting in the vicinity of 2 parents who happened to bring their infant, crying child, who cried throughout the entire movie. And I was so irritated, I missed half of the storyline because I was like, will this baby stop crying? I mean, I have babies of my own, but come on. Leave them home or get a babysitter. So after that experience, I said, not even for the major blockbusters am I going into the commercial cinema. Everything day and date at home. And I will just, I'll deal with the lossy audio. And as everybody here can attest, even the lossy audio can sound great in a properly set up room. So I will take that 70 to 80% and then revisit it once it's released in its full quality and full glory. So definitely at home all the way.
One thing I will say, because, to be fair, there are some movies that just symbolize more than the movie itself. Like, I remember when Wonder Woman 1 came out, it was a big deal for a lot of women across the country to have such a powerful lead. And now, I'm not being politically correct. I'm just stating a fact. I remember reading about screenings that were done that were women only. And it was just this celebration of woman power, going and watching this woman-centric movie, which, by the way, was an excellent movie, right? So I can see the benefit in having celebrations like that for things that symbolize more than the movie itself. But when we're talking about the cinematic experience overall, it's so nice to see that you guys also support the choice versus, the 6-week contract that cinemas are shoving down these production companies' throats. Typically, Taurus, how about you, my friend? What do you think? What would you do?
Me, I do it at home. I'm not opposed to going to the theater, though, to go to the commercial theater. We've got some fantastic theaters here in the San Antonio area, actually all throughout Texas, that are premium theaters where you get the plush lounge seating, the power recline. Some of them even have power headrest. You get the wine and dined experience, with the fantastic gourmet food that you can get. So every now and again, it's nice to get out with the wife and have a date night. So in those instances, it's good to go to the theater. Now, I'm an old guy, so date night for me is really date morning, because I like to go to the theater at 11 or 10 o'clock in the morning. But it's still nice to get out the house every now and again, and it's the simplest way to do that, to feel safe, to feel like you got out, you didn't necessarily have to go too far away from your home. It's safe. You come back home, and then you feel good about at least getting out for a couple hours of that day. I'm not opposed to it at all. But I will say, I am quite enjoying this HBO Max showing their blockbuster theatrically released movies day and date on HBO Max. I'm hoping that is the future after the pandemic is over, because for those of us that have fantastic theaters, we can truly appreciate what it is they're doing. We get the full theatrical experience in our homes. So it's not wasted on us, the fact that they allow us to watch it in our home. I want to see more of that. And I don't want to take up too much more time talking about this, but the one thing that I'm hoping comes out of this pandemic, I really want commercial theaters to be healthy. I think it's important for them to be healthy. because it's a communal experience going to the theater, and we all need it, whether you choose to partake in it.
And Taurus, that'll actually affect the budgets of the movies as well. I mean, if there's no butts being filled in theater seats, then budgets are going to shrink that much more so, and we'll all be drama fans, and that's it.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of these production companies, a lot of these studios are now trying to do these streaming platforms because they're seeing the money that Netflix is making, which is why they're okay putting all of these movies on their platforms. But I really do think that having movies, I'm not a fan of the 90-day window. I'll put it to you that way. The 90-day window for when a movie releases in the theater, you have to wait 90 days in order to get the 4K Blu-ray or the Kaleidoscape version of it. I'm liking the fact, and what I'm hoping comes out of this pandemic is you're seeing studios like Universal have 17-day to say 45-day contract with these movie theaters. So if a movie's not performing the way that they want it to, they don't have to wait the 90 days for them to put it out for home release. They can do 2 weeks in the theater, 2 to 3 weeks in the theater. And then if they want to put it on a digital release, for people to watch premium video on demand, they have the option to do that. And then shortly thereafter, they'll put out the 4K Blu-ray release or the regular Blu-ray release. That's what I'm hoping happens. So I don't like waiting 90 days for my blockbuster movies
too long
to come off the theater.
Yeah.
But enough about me, guys. Let's move it on to the next question. We are at 1 hour and 20 minutes or so. We'll probably run a little more than what I was expecting, and that's okay. But I definitely want to make sure that we're making good time for the amount of time we have left.
You're listening to the Fun Waste of Time podcast.
So the last question that I have about your theaters, guys, and then we're going to get to Hussein's game room, is of all the components within your theater, what would you say that you are most proud to have? Now, we all know that the home theater experience, everything makes the experience. But what's that one device or that one component that you said, man, I don't think it would be the same for me if this wasn't within my lineup, if this wasn't in my theater? Let's start with Arjun on this one.
Yeah, thanks. It's actually a question that I don't even have to think about because when I had it, it just changed the game. And it's my PB16 Ultras. I'm running 2 of them. And man, what a difference it made. No subwoofer I've ever used before that has ever even compared remotely. They are phenomenal. They pack a punch. And, I will always remember watching the movie Midway and those bombs dropping. And really, actually, I was so proud of my subs. I went to the top floor. It's 3 stories, including the basement. And I could see my bedroom window and it's shaking. So PB16 Ultras, definitely.
Fantastic. And what about you, Hussein? What can you not live without in your theater?
So I like spending time in my theater and doing absolutely nothing a lot of times as well. So I've been working from home full time for many, many years. I'll sit with my laptop in that room with nothing on. And I feel like I'm transported somewhere else every time I sit there. So I'd have to say the acoustically transparent screen just made it feel that much more like a legitimate theater than what I had previously. Because if you go to a legitimate theater, you're not seeing the front LCR or the subwoofers anywhere in sight. So to me, just a very aesthetically pleasing atmosphere, and that helps complete that.
Awesome. Very good devices and pieces of equipment. For me, just really quick, I always say it's my Lumagen, my video processor. Can't live without that thing. No black bars on my screens. Everything pretty much uses up all the real estate on that screen. What about you, Matt? What would you say yours is?
I would definitely say my Lumagen as well, but specifically because it's the 534 model, that audiophile circuitry has made such a difference in my listening experience, especially for audio. If you're a music lover, oh my goodness, yeah, that 534 rate. So absolutely, hands down, the Lumagen Radiance Pro.
You're making me jealous, though. I don't have the 5348. Yeah.
That's all right. Now, you have the Radiance, though. It's an outstanding processor, one way or another.
So,
Arjun?
I have a quick question for the both of you then. I'm in between whether my next upgrade is going to be a Lumigen or a Paladin Patamorph lens. Okay.
Lumigen. Yep. Lumigen, 100%.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for making the question easy for us, Arjun. We really appreciate that. We like easy questions.
Cheers.
All right, guys. Well, now what I want to do, I want to get to Hussein's fantastic game room that he has and that he puts a lot of resources and time into. So Hussain, what I'm going to do, I'm going to play one of the videos that you actually put out on YouTube on your channel, and then just talk us through some of the things that are going on in the room. And I can stop the video at any time so that we can take a little time to discuss whatever element of it you want to talk about.
Sure.
Give me 1 second here to get that up. Right. Starting from the beginning. Now, where are we here, Hussain?
My wife's favorite spot in the family room. So 86-inch LG there. And I basically wanted to emulate. This video is shot exactly 1 year after another video of mine went viral. It has almost 1 million views on YouTube now. So I shot it in the exact same format, exactly 1 year apart. And that way you're able to see all of the different things that I've done. And it's a consequence of the pandemic, really. All these things that are being swapped out. So that what you just saw there, the ALR screen, that the floor rising screen, that's all temporarily there, guys. This is all sitting upstairs now. This was just there because I do run a YouTube channel. I'm usually the go-to guy for IT questions and tech questions amongst my friends. So because of the pandemic, one of the videos going viral, it literally had hundreds of questions, and I couldn't answer all of them constantly. So I started making some videos describing my setup and some of the do-it-yourself type of things that I've got as well. And once I started doing that, other companies started noticing, and they said, "Hey, would you please review our product? Would you review this? Can we send you that? Can we send you this?" So that's kind of why that's sitting there. The acoustics are far better. I don't have carpet upstairs anywhere, so I can't really shoot my YouTube videos. There's way too much echo. So I have a good spot there, and I tend to put screens there and do my review. So that's an LG HU85LA mated with a Vivid Storm ALR floor rising screen.
So now we are in your theater, and we're actually seeing one of the themes that you got going on for this particular video, which is Star Wars.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
So I tend to pick darker images because it's black walls. The images tend to look like they're floating. So my son and I, we typically pick those types of images, and he's a huge fan of Darth Vader. So we've got him on all of the screens. The audio is all lightsaber battles. That if you're able to hear any of it, it's all lightsaber battles. He likes the clashing of sounds and things. So I had themed out the entire basement with his help, and I thought, okay, so I'm going to shoot my 1 year update video, and let me just do that with the Star Wars theme, and that's exactly what's going on here.
All right, let's see if we can play a little of the sound and see how that comes out. You guys hear that?
Yeah.
Now, I want to stop because you talked a little bit earlier about the light show that you have going on in the theater as well. So this is what we're looking at here.
That's exactly it, right? As you can see there's two light dots on the top. So I've programmed them to follow a certain path and not be random, and not be hitting people that are sitting in the seats in the face either, right? You don't want that bright light hitting somebody in the face. So I've programmed them to follow a certain sequence and a scene, and I change it up for every movie. So in other times, I did coordinate that with the lightsabers as well as they're moving. When you have a little bit of fog, you actually have particles in the air that the light can then reflect off of. Then you get that beaming effect. So I didn't do that in this video, but I did that in another video where I have the lights down, and then you see the lights as beams. And then so I do have, actually, I stand corrected. I do have fog on that other end. So as you can see, there's a beaming effect, and I wanted to create that that effect as if there's lightsabers coming out into the room. So.
Fantastic. And I'm loving the arcade that you have here. What's the inspiration behind getting the old school arcade here?
Man, we're all of a similar generation. The kids with the fistful of quarters go into the mall to visit the arcade and pumping that favorite machine of yours with quarter after quarter type of thing. So I wanted that craziness of that sound of an arcade. I typically run all of them and have a little bit of volume in all of them, where when you stand amongst them, it transports you to that time in the 80s and 90s for me anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Absolutely.
No Mortal Kombat, Hussein?
So look, actually, you know what? It's funny you say that, because I was going to ask him what games he has here. I'm seeing something. Is that Mortal Kombat here, Hussein?
It is. So that machine's modded. I've got a PC in there, and I've got about 5,000 arcade games on it.
Wow.
So it natively just came with Street Fighter. So putting a PC in and having all the MAME ROMs, there's 5,000 of them. So any game that you name is on that thing.
It's fantastic. And how much use do they get during family functions?
Oh, constantly. Mostly amongst guys my age. So once you pan towards the TV, I've got a bunch of old school consoles, like the older PS2, PS3s, and PS4s there, and the previous generation Xboxes. They're all kind of sitting there. The current consoles are all upstairs, and as I mentioned earlier, one's in my son's room. He got good grades, and then I ended up being on the losing end of that battle by saying, okay, you can have the PS5 in your room if you get an A on your next test or whatever it was. I don't even remember. So it's been there ever since, and I can't wrestle that back out of his room now.
Well, he should be very grateful, because you pretty much have to almost strangle somebody in order to get a PS5 these days. So you did a very good job taking care of your son, Hussein.
Yeah, you went through the fight. But you'll see him before he goes to college. You'll see him again. You'll see him in a couple of years.
Oh, man.
So I'm going to play a little sound, because I think it gets really interesting right around here. Now, I want to stop for a second, Hussein.
Yeah.
This is a pool table, but what kind of billiards is this? This doesn't look like traditional pool.
This is a bumper pool table. So as you can see in the room itself, I gave a lot of credence and thought to aesthetics and where things are placed. I didn't want it to be overly busy. I didn't want the walls to be overly busy. Being subterranean, I didn't want the walls and the space to feel dark either. I wanted to feel bright and roomy, which is why the carpet and the walls remain light. So having said that, with limited amount of space and not just getting something for the sake of getting something, I've always wanted a pool table. Just a pool table just would not work in the space. It was either going to be the pool table or the ping pong table. Ping pong table, I could not sacrifice. My entire family are huge fans. My dad was like a college champion, so that's his number one thing to do when he's over. So I could not get rid of that to get a pool table. So I got a bumper pool table, which is half the size of a pool table, but just as fun. If you haven't seen how a bumper pool table kind of works, I'd suggest, checking it out on YouTube. It is a lot of fun. It's all about angles, and it's a very competitive game. You play either very defensively or you play offensively. And I'll leave it at that. But I would really suggest, if you're tight for space and you want a pool table, excellent compromise to make is to get a bumper pool table.
I've never played with a bumper pool table. That's interesting. Cool. Do you play poker a lot? I'm seeing the poker table here.
Truth be told, I recently learned how to play poker. It's mostly for my buddies that come over and they hang out and they play, and I just kind of participate. But yeah, I don't have much of a poker face. I'm not much of a player, and like I said, I just recently.
You don't like losing money. Huh?
Yeah.
No, I'm there with you, because my wife is a big pool person and a poker person.
Oh, wow.
And I'm terrible at pool, and I've never played poker. So my wife would definitely like you.
Nice.
Several of her friends play. I do not, and I'm too old to learn. I'm just too old to learn.
I'm with you on that one, Matt. I've never played poker either.
Same.
Oh, yeah.
Same here.
Okay.
That does double as a bumper pool table too, though. By the way, that whole thing flips over, and if you have a spillover situation, we got 2 pool tables going.
Oh, nice, nice.
So here we have the pinball machine. Is that a traditional pinball machine, or is that something different?
It's a virtual pinball machine, so it's got several tables. It's a screen with minimal. It's got haptic feedback. It feels like the real thing, but it is a screen.
That had the popcorn machine. Does it get much use though, Hussein? Does it get much use?
Sadly, it is all optics. That thing.
It's too clean. It's too clean. That's why I asked.
It is too clean. So what we tend to do is we'll use the popcorn machine upstairs, basically an air popper, and I'll come and I'll just dump like batches of popcorn in this machine. I ran this a couple of times, and I don't know if it's a defect or not, but it tends to create a lot more smoke than necessary. And I'm just afraid that there's particles of oil in the air, and then this gets sucked into the vent of the projectors, and then more issues to deal with down the road. So I only use it as a warming machine. It has a warming plate. I do the popcorn batches upstairs, bring it downstairs, dump it in this thing, and that's kind of it.
That's blasphemy. Blasphemy, Hussein.
It's all optics.
But I love my popcorn machine. It gets a lot of use. I clean it like once a week. But
Nice.
you kind of have to be careful how much popcorn you eat, because you're taking in a lot of calories. And I can take down a couple buckets.
Yeah, same here.
You should turn the audio back on for this part.
Okay.
Wow.
Is that a holographic butterfly I just saw?
It's a holographic fan.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, just that 4D type of effect.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And there's something else that I want to play before we move on from your theater, Hussein.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
It really is. He did an awesome job with that.
Thank you.
So now what I want to do is I want to play some of the other themes that Hussein has actually done in his game room.
It's become our thing now, basically. Any big blockbuster movie or action movie that's coming out, I'll run the audio from the trailer itself, and then have like a 4D type of effect, and pace through the room with the multiple screens, and have a grand finale in the theater room. So that's kind of been my shtick, and a lot of my Instagram followers kind of asked for it, so I end up doing that.
Wow.
So we're going to put a little sound on this. These are just 30 seconds long, so they don't really take a whole lot of time.
This one is very similar to you probably want to skip this one only because it's, sorry, this is
Not this
Godzilla.
one.
Okay.
Okay. This is one of my favorites, Hussein. We're not bypassing this, buddy.
Gotcha.
She's the only one to communicate with.
I knew that they had a bond. She had nowhere to go, so I made a promise to protect her.
I had to throw in the Cabbage Patch Kids. Godzilla.
I think that in some way, Khan did the same.
And hold on, that's that new screen that you
Yes.
replaced the rising and lowering screen with, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which I've got to do a review video on probably in the next couple of weeks, and then I'll end up moving that somewhere else in the house.
Wow.
Right. Well, let's go to the next one.
Sorry, what screen was that?
It's another ambient light rejecting screen for an
Okay.
ultra short throw projector.
Got it.
And the reason why it's there because again, I've got carpeting here, and I tend to throw it on that wall because it's one of the few bare walls that I've got, and I've got a window that's immediately to the left of it. So to kind of demonstrate what it looks like with ambient light or the sunlight hitting it directly, and how much it affects, how much rejection's actually happening or not.
Gotcha. Okay.
So now we have a Mortal Kombat theme.
Listen, kid. Watch. Learn. Mortal Kombat has begun.
There's a war coming.
We need to fight before it's too late.
Get over here!
Mortal Kombat.
Nice. Very nice. That is just fantastic, Hussein.
Thank you. The most interesting comment I've gotten is that he must be sponsored by the producers of the company because this looks really legit. So I was flattered when I read that comment.
That is fantastic. You put a lot of time and energy into it. It's quite obvious.
Yeah.
And you said your son gives you ideas a lot of the time too, right?
What's that? Sorry?
You said your son gives you a lot of ideas sometimes too, right?
This is probably about 80% him and 20% me influencing some of his ideas.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that, Hussein. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I cannot wait to see what you're going to do next. I got to tell you.
All right.
So let's go ahead and move it on to Matt. Matt has made some recent additions and improvements to his theater. And I want us to take a minute just to talk a little bit about some of the things that he's done. Matt, would you mind sharing some of the latest additions and improvements that you've made to your theater?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll start off with the JVC RS3000. So I had the JVC RS520, and then I happened to be a guest on this podcast last year, and that conversation led to some peer pressure in my own brain, and I was like, wait a minute. I've been out of this game too long. I had to step away, family obligations, and then I was like, wait a minute, this hobby is awesome. So I just dove back into it. Got the RS3000 along with the Stewart ST130 screen. I got the perforated version. It's a 1.3 gain screen, and man, I'll just tell you the quality is definitely top tier. I went from perforated. I went from a woven screen. It was 12 foot wide, 16:9 woven. This is a 160-inch wide, 240 perforated, and the brightness just kind of it took me off guard initially. And I've owned an ST130 before. I've owned the G3 earlier last decade, and even my wife noticed. The first thing she said was, "Wait a minute, this is bright." Like I finally understand. She doesn't always understand the reason behind the upgrade. She understood this one. She said, "I understand why you upgraded your screen." And so, yeah, the JVC RS3000 and the Stewart ST130 G4, they work very well together. The picture quality is top notch. You get the black levels that JVC is known for. Highly recommend both of them. Also upgraded to the Lumigen 5348 because I am an audiophile. Before I ever got into the home theater hobby, I was in the 2-channel hobby. And 2-channel was my gateway to home theater. So I love audio. I sit and listen to 2-channel. I don't have the time now that I did back then. I used to sit for 4 or 5 hours straight and just listen to album after album of 2-channel. But now I usually get maybe 9 or 10 songs in before I have to step away for some reason. This Lumigen, the Radiance Pro 5348, I wasn't sure how much of a difference I would hear until I actually did the install. And I played through, there's a track by an artist called Clara, CHLARA. It's called Marry Me. And that's an audio, so it's an audio test that I play on a lot of speakers for how it deals with vocals, the separation of vocals from instruments. She uses an acoustic guitar. And the first time that I played it, I immediately noticed more separation of the vocal from the acoustic guitar. Like it sounded like she was literally just playing it instead of them being played just through the same microphone. I heard a separation, and I said, you know what? This is it. The sound stage just really opened up as well. So I love that upgrade. And the final upgrade was a Kaleidoscape Strato. I was doing the disc ripping thing for a long time, 10 years, 11 years. And finally decided to take the jump. Again, had a little peer pressure from Taurus and the folks who have already taken this leap. And, I can never go back. There are some talk about, so basically, anytime I mention on social media or on AVS about anything about Kaleidoscape, I always get responses requiring or saying, okay, well, it doesn't have Atmos for all the movies, or it doesn't have all the movies, and I would just counter those notions with the fact that every movie that I've wanted to purchase has had a lossless track. Basically, for me, it mirrors what I can get on disc. Now, if you're trying to find some movies from an older catalog, I know that the studios have been releasing some older movies with upgraded 4K and Atmos tracks. I'm not sure. How Kaleidoscape is handling those re-releases into 4K and Atmos, but everything that I've purchased has just been great. I get that nice 4K HDR experience. I get the Atmos or the DTS-X. To the point where last night, the wife and I, we watched the movie, and it's available on Hulu. And when we decided we wanted to watch this movie, I said, no, we need to run on Kaleidoscape. She said, no, but it's available free. I said, honey, you need to wait until you see this. Because we saw the first one. Well, we watched the sequel. So we saw the first one about 2 weeks ago. And we said, yeah, we'll watch the sequel. I said, listen, we need to rent it on Kaleidoscape. We did it. She said, Matt, I understand. It looked so much better than the original one that we saw, and the sound was actually enjoyable to the point where she had the remote and she was turning the volume up because she just wanted more of the soundtrack.
Oh,
I was awesome. Like, this is why we do this. This is why we take it to a level beyond streaming, and it was just so exciting. So that is a use case just from last night, and I can cite several similar examples. So yeah, those are the primary upgrades that I've made to the room, and I am just so elated for them. And I'm looking forward to what 2021 holds. Of course, I'm taking a look at what Cedia will be presenting once they have it. I do plan on flying out there. I might have to wear about 8 masks. I don't know, but I have to get out there if they're having it because I want to see what is on the horizon. I really do. So yeah, those are the upgrades on this front.
Well, all right. Actually, before we move on, I want to ask you guys. I want to ask Hussein and you, Arjun, if people want to follow some of the things that you guys are doing with your theater, your game room, or any other endeavors that you guys have, how can they go about following you? Let's start with Hussein.
So I have a fairly active Instagram channel. I tend to post things and these big movies that are coming out or sporting events that are coming out, just my feedback. And a lot of times I'll run, solicit for which team are you rooting for and who's going to be winning, that sort of thing. I tend to run that on my Instagram, and it's all Game Room Theater, all one word. And same thing on my TikTok. I've got a fairly robust TikTok account. I think 20,000 plus people now. And same kind of idea. I share some of my updates, what's upcoming, and what's planned for the future, and what I'm doing on the weekends a lot of times as well. So again, it's all Game Room Theater, and then my YouTube channel is strictly more business. Business in the sense that more again as a hobby. I do tech reviews, and I also do a lot of do-it-yourself type of videos as well. So it's all Game Room Theater, one word.
Arjun, if people want to follow you and some of the things that you're doing, how can they go about doing so?
Yeah, thanks. So Facebook is always one because I'm a big Facebook user. The other thing is, we have a small business where we do like custom signs and stuff for home theater and otherwise, and that is dreamyourdesigns.com. So, people can reach me either through Facebook or there. And, I just love chatting with people that are getting into the hobby. So, always happy to have a quick chat.
Fantastic. And Matt, if people want to follow some of the things that you're doing, how can they go about doing so?
Sure. For home theater on Instagram, brolic.media. For home theater, if you like lifting weights, I have a Dolby Atmos gym. That's brolic.strength. On YouTube, it's Brolic Media. And on Facebook, Brolic Media. And also I have a website. It's brolicmedia.com.
Well, all right. I want to thank you all for listening into this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We'd love for you to join in with us the next time. Tell your family, tell your friends. We want as many people to join in on the fun as possible. Be sure to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platforms so more people can find out what the fun waste of time is all about. If you're interested in some of the latest things that are happening within the Fun Waste of Time community, you can follow us on our website, thefunwasteoftime.com, Facebook, and Instagram. If you'd like to reach out to us to ask a question, share a thought on a particular subject, or just give us a shout out, you can contact us on the Fun Waste of Time website, on our contact page, or shoot us an email at podcast@thefunwasteoftime.com. That's podcast@thefunwasteoftime.com. Well, y'all take care. Y'all come back now. You hear?